As business owners in 2025, AI has become an integral part of our journey. Sometimes we stumble, other times we thrive. But one thing's for sure, AI is here to stay. The more we embrace it and understand its potential, the better we can leverage it for success. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Ravdeep Singh, a product veteran turned founder, who will be sharing his unique experience of both building and selling with AI. Welcome, Ravdeep, to the Sales Talk. Let's talk about your journey of building with AI. When and how did it start?
Thanks, Tahira, for having me. Maybe let's start at the top, right? How do you find the right idea to kind of build that? So, from generally, what I do is for most of the products that I then was looking at approaching at that time, you could use two lenses to go at it. One is more inwards looking, one is more outwards looking. A simple analogy, if I can use there, is you find a pothole on your street, you figure out how do you get your tar and try to fill it. And a lot of people use multiple phrases for it, scratching your own itch, found the market fit, so on and so forth. The
Yeah.
outward looking lens is how many other such potholes exist across the country, the world. Can I fill those holes scalably? Can I make money while doing it? And you kind of marry both of them. For somebody like me who had built like growth products for like 5 years or so before uh, starting this, and maybe a decade more building different other kinds of products, the I had a bunch of consumer insights and organizational insights on what kind of problems with the new tech coming with AI, could I personalize way more, and could I reach out with much more targeted campaigns? And that's kind of the space that I found myself in. I can dig deeper into the insights of Wafrow and what got me there, but maybe that's something that you had top of mind already.
Yeah. So exactly like when did you realize that AI could solve real marketing problems and these were the problems that you wanted to work on?
Sounds good. So think of it this way, right? With my experience building growth products,
Yeah.
the one clear user insight I had was the more deeply you understand a user and can communicate in a context, the messaging resonates better, you convert more, right? So that's pretty much a very simple assertion to make. But the organizational insight layering on top of that is creativity and production volume are inversely proportional. Like there is bread made in a factory and there is bread made by a bakery. The two don't kind of go together, right? Which
Yeah.
kind of is like brand teams cannot churn out 50,000 creatives because a personalized creative works better. Engineering teams cannot build 50,000 versions of landing pages because you can't A/B test and then you can't do stuff. So if you marry the two insights that more personalization converts, but creative production doesn't scale, you could come up with a different way of using AI to personalize creatives and think of them as multiple layers of creatives. One layer changed by AI, but like your discount, your brand logo, your CTAs, everything kind of staying constant. You could generate multiple versions of your sort of creatives the way a designer would. And this started to happen really maybe about 1.5 years back, which is kind of when I started to think about it. Now it's come along a lot more. But the biggest sort of criticism of AI since then till now was it used to hallucinate quite a lot, right? So you can't always rely on LLMs to stick to your brand colors, make sure your logo is exactly that. This is kind of where the insight that I brought to the table, that if you treat everything like layers, and some layers are very deterministic, that your logo will always be your logo, your discount font will always be your discount font. But one of the layers can be completely AI generated, which is a consumer eating food or showing a truck sort of for delivery. That background image is AI generated. The user would not even know that this was a challenge that was being seen. So solved an org problem, a consumer problem, and kind of met both in the middle and tried to get some traction. Also, it helped that AI is a buzzword. So at least you get a foot in the door when you send a message to a CMO that I can do AI generated creatives. At least they don't completely ignore you and at least hear you out on a call, and then you can show them some.
Right, right. So, like you talked about this challenge, what other challenges have you been facing since you became a founder? And what new did you learn as a founder, and what skills did you get from your previous experiences to this new role?
I think I would kind of categorize them into two large buckets, right? One is building the company itself. The
Yeah.
biggest difference with all of my experience has been in product so far. The thing is, kind of the rules of the game are very well defined when you're a product manager trying to scale a business from X 100 million to X billion, which is something I've done. You know you are playing chess or are you playing checkers? At least that's kind of when you are pre-product market fit and somebody sort of like me who was doing it completely solo bootstrapping, you could be a CRM tool, you could be an image optimization tool, you could be a copy creation tool because the same kind of thing happens. So you go through ups and downs, and the ambiguity level as a founder is much, much harder to deal with. And I wish I could say I was 9 on 10 perfect in most of the things, but I wasn't. Like it was very chaotic. But I kind of found a method to the madness, which is kind of how I was describing it. Build a framework for everything, write down obsessively. Also, as a smart person, right? Like you can back rationalize all your decisions. So every stupid idea that you had 2 months later, you'll be like, no, this did not work because of XYZ. But if you write down your hypothesis and then try to defend it in 2 months, the reality meets execution and somehow you kind of marry the two. So one part is that org building part. The other part is everything that I realized, and this is pretty much post facto introspection, that everything I was bad at, I had to try to convert it into a process. Right? I'm bad at sales. And that kind of meant I had a calendar block on Monday morning and Wednesday morning where I would find more leads, send out cold outreach, then follow up, then kind of schedule calls with people who did respond. So everything that I was bad at had a checklist and a metric measuring am I moving the needle on that or not. For say the first 3 or 4 months, I was just spraying everything on a wall and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. But slowly I got a framework and a process for everything, which is something that uh, as a PM, you're kind of just building the product and relying on a finance team to do the finance team job, a sales team to do the sales team job. That's not kind of the remit here. You kind of have to do everything and slowly build a process for things that you're bad at.
Yeah, so that must be quite challenging.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So, like, okay, so how did you like identify the market segment? Like, whom do you want to sell to? And then how did you decide on the pricing and the product strategy?
So the two-part process to do this, right, is first thing that you try to identify is you figure out an ideal customer for your product. And the second view, which you kind of hinted at, is you figure out a pricing model at least. And I'll kind of break down both of them a little bit. By ideal customer, I actually mean that you can go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator, apply some filters that small and medium businesses in Germany who had like less than 500 employees with a job title sales development representative. That is a persona who has an acute problem that you are trying to solve for. So you can imagine yourself in that person's shoes. Ideally, you should focus on the buyer, not the user, right? So if you were, say, building an accounting tool, the person buying would be the CFO, but the person using might be a director of finance or somebody.
Yep.
It's very important to nail down what are the needs that each of these people are trying to look for, which is where you come to the pricing model.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're trying to, and I'm specifically saying model, not the actual price, right? So it's not like about $500 or $5,000. It is how do you prove to the CFO that this is how I'm increasing revenue, this is how I'm decreasing cost for your business, this is how I would measure it. And you can start a pilot for as close to zero as possible. And then actually in a quarter or so, I would be able to sort of show this value. For Wafrow, it was exactly that if you use me on a campaign, I will show you an improvement in conversion rate, a decrease in the time that it takes your creative team to ship creatives exponentially. Try out a pilot for as close to zero as possible. And on my website, you can actually sign up for like a 14-day free trial without doing anything. And you will be able to see the value immediately. And with AI, I think this product market fit question has become easier because every company is charging, right? It's not like giving you a 6-month free thingy, which like a tool like Cloudflare is kind of forever free. I have been using them for 1 year. I've not paid them a single dollar, despite me liking that tool a lot. So that thing was far harder pre-AI. Post-AI, because you have costs going in, you have to charge money.
Right.
If one person is paying you, you have a product user fit. If 5 people are paying you for that demographic, you kind of have something. If 10 people start paying you, you kind of know that I was able to reach out to 1,000 people and get to convert 10 of them. Now I just need to figure out either improve the conversion rate, either the bottom of the funnel, or how do I get 1,000 more such people to talk to me. And the more people are paying you, you have much more. It's much more similar to a traditional business, right? If you open a restaurant, you know how many tables you serve per day, and that's your product market fit. It's not like a convoluted 6-month completely free period and then you're trying to figure that out. But as long as you figure out your ideal customer base and the pricing model for that, it's easier to get your first 5 people to try out. And then you pretty much start churning the wheels of your GTM motion. Where does my ideal customer hang out? Which channels can I use them for? Is LinkedIn a better option, or is cold email a better option, or going to an offline conference a better option? Those things kind of go downstream from your first few ideal customer definition.
Right. The biggest criticism that AI is facing today is that it lacks human touch.
Mhm.
So, in your company, in your new business, how do you deal with that? How do you balance automation and human touch? How do you decide which parts do I automate and which I do not?
So I treat every such workflow as a two-step workflow because one, till I am very confident that it works manually, I don't try to automate it, right? One of the very simple engineering maxims is like do something 3 times manually and then automate it for the 4th time. I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier as well, right? You can't spray and pray. So step one, if I was trying to automate email, I would try to send out 1,000 cold emails myself, figure out what works, what doesn't work, understand the context in which a person is trying to automate. Because if you look at a lot of, let's take to the email as an example, right? A lot of email automation tools would say, look at a trigger, key this person got funding, and then try to generate an AI email for that person. How it is relying on a real world data. But how many such emails is a founder supposed to get after announcing a funding requirement? Like generally you would find that they would get 100 such emails with no value being delivered to them. And I think that's the question to ask. Like AI helps you personalize, but did you use it to talk like a human or did you use it to talk like a robot? The more you can talk like a human and strip out all the nonsense manually and then try to automate your humanness, I guess that is possibly the better way of approaching it. The second thing that we use a lot of AI for is internal processes which have nothing customer facing, pretty much. Like, how would I, in an engineer example, would be how would I secure my servers completely? How would I implement a Cloudflare tunnel? No consumer cares about something like this. Or how would I write code? And I have found a lot better leverage of AI where there is zero customer contact than in the first kind of example because it's an internal process. Nobody cares how I do accounting. But if I use a lot of AI to do that accounting, my company becomes like 15% better efficient. And that is a far better use of AI in my head. So I try to keep the customer contact as human centric as possible because my aim from the first call that I have with people is to get added to their Slack. An AI bot is not responding to that Slack. I'm the guy actually then responding to all those Slack messages. It's never to make a sale in like step one. It is get injected and then try to do stuff around that. I only try to automate things I have to do and things I really, really dislike doing, which have zero value. And that kind of works out both. And
Right.
I will acknowledge that what you're saying, right? A lot of the criticism of AI is actually well earned. People are using it to spam other people, and that's kind of not cool.
Yeah, so we need to really learn how to use AI, and how you use AI, it like everything kind of depends on that.
Yeah, 100%. Right?
Yes. Okay. You also mentioned on one of your LinkedIn posts that, when purchase decisions are made by a single person, sales cycle reduced from weeks to minutes.
Mhm.
And otherwise, when it is being made by bigger teams. So,
Correct.
what B2B lessons did you learn while, while embarking on your journey of sales as a founder?
I think this was something that I learned from a fellow founder who'd scaled his company to like about $7-8 million. He introduced me to this sales methodology called MEDIC. And if you step out everything, the one thing that he essentially boiled it down to, when you're having your first sales call, you should have some parameters for how did this sales call go, because everything is subjective. Are you talking to a buyer or not? Is one of those kind of questions. I think the most important element here is who is going to be the champion of this particular tool within that company. And it makes it much easier to have champions if somebody who's going to be the final consumer of that tool, they can download something and use it 100% without any other person being involved. So as a marketer, I have hundreds of small problems for which I pay for to solve. But as an individual marketer, I'm not buying so many tools, right? So it's that thing is coming from the CMO. My approach to this sales was, how many of those individual marketers can I convert into loyal champions without involving like a CMO level discussion where I'm aggressively trying to pitch the tool. And I intentionally published a lot of free tools to say ad copy rewriting is essentially an LLM. You give me a string, I will sort of rewrite that string to make it more punchy. Creating brand sort of audience personas. Most marketers try to write for, say, a child versus an adult. They would try to write in different ways. So I, with no cost to me, I can publish these tools which an individual marketer can use. One, it gives me a lead to reach out to because this is a person using my tool. Two, it when I'm in a sales cycle, this person acts as a champion and says, look, I use tool 1, 2, 3 from this company and it helps sell. Now, if you start to backtrack it, it's a long growth hack because it doesn't happen like immediately somebody starts to use a free tool. 3 months later, they become your champion in that sense. But it's a tool that kind of works both ways, right? I provided value before I started to ask for value in return. And that was the advice that I got from my founder friend, which kind of led to me publishing a bunch of free tools. It also helped a lot in SEO because then people are searching for something like this. They got organically started a free version and then at some point in time became champions for the deal. So I think it's a question of treating everything like a step in the funnel. That is this person problem aware? Is this person solution aware? Is this person aware of the kind of product that I build? And can they become a champion at some point in time? And I think that was also the phase where I was throwing a bunch of things at the wall to see what would work. And a bunch of these things tried to sort of coalesce and worked out. So I don't have massive attribution to say this free tool is the best. I got a lot from free tools, and I continue to publish some of them in that.
Right. That's a great piece of advice, that we should add value before we seek value. And I think that is what worked for you
Yeah.
and a lot of other people out there. Okay. Also, is it easier now to sell an AI product, or if it is a business, does it have to be an AI now?
Mm, I would say yes and no. I will sort of kind of delve into both of them a little bit. Thing is, in sales, one of the things I've learned, right, is people are willing to pay for a problem they anticipate in the future will become big for them as they grow. This will be an area that they want to invest in, and then that's kind of what they would be willing to pay for. It's a very different way of building products. If you try to think of products, you would say, what is your problem today? I will try to fix that problem. Pay me for that problem today. Sales kind of does not work that way. If you try to talk to people and say, look, in my business, this is something that I anticipate will become a problem in the future. Like, for example, Shopify store owners, when I try to sell them, they are more worried about how will I get traffic in the future from an LLM. Right? They are not as worried about how do I personalize today. So can you build something that will help me continue to get traffic from Google is where they are coming from a top of market kind of perspective. And that's a future problem for them. That's not a today's problem, but they are willing to pay for something in that. In that kind of respect, using AI as a sales tool is like all 100 on 100, in the sense that you can say that I am building the next big thing and there is hype for those tools as well, and then you're able to sell accordingly. The reason why I said no as well, right? That everything that you inject AI into, did it actually add value to the consumer's life? I don't think that is true in all cases, specifically in a lot of AI companies that either try to sell to me. I have to tell them, look, man, this seems way more like BS than it should be. Sure. Which is kind of where I'm much more skeptical of uh, over promises of AI in terms of the functional thing that it can solve, right? One probable example that you can maybe relate to is use of AI in customer support. I see a lot of companies having rapidly adopted the cost cutting effort. But as a consumer, when you see an AI bot versus a human bot, your experience is like 90% worse than it used to be. And it requires thoughtfulness to make the AI cross the chasm, right? You could provide the best training data. You could actually provide actions which solve the problem immediately. And all of that can be solved. Is it being done uniformly across the board by all the software providers or by the brands themselves? I doubt that. Can it? Yes. Does it? Yes. So that's the thing that I'm still very, very skeptical about. I don't think we're doing an awesome job as an industry of kind of labeling AI in a way that it's not just a sales tool, it actually does provide a better user experience.
So we're just kind of using AI to sell, but it's not very authentic.
Or not solving a hard enough problem in its best form, if I can call it like that. So maybe I can give you another example that kind of, let's stick to the customer support domain itself, right? You could train let's say you take an Uber and you had an issue with the Uber. There is a lot of thought that has gone into Uber to say which kind of trip should be refunded because it was a problem or not. And they provided a lot of that self-serve within the app as well. Compare that to a Vodafone or an Idea. Those self-serve actions itself don't exist. Before AI can be injected into the process itself needs to become better. That's my whole argument. And I do not think that companies have invested in the processes. They have invested in the AI to make the chatbot seem like a human. The only difference is the chatbot responds far much faster, but ends up giving you the same kind of shitty answer that a human would have without the process. And that's kind of where it's stuck. Like, did you actually end up resolving the customer's problem or not should be the benchmark that you use everything for. And I do not think that's true. And I could definitely be wrong. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but yeah, I am skeptical.
Right. Right. Okay. So, in your view, how should, solo founders or small sales teams approach selling their products using AI?
Uh, Using two big strategies, right? One, assume that you have identified who your ideal customer is.
Yeah.
Figure out what all channels that they hang out on, and every single channel has its own characteristics, right? So a Reddit is not the same as a LinkedIn, is not the same as a conference. What you could do is use AI to automate content creation which is most relevant to all of those channels. And I have built a lot of those workflows using something like NA10 to say, this is what I would like to say. Can you adapt this content for a LinkedIn, for separately for a YouTube, or for something else? So I use a lot of AI in the content production part of it. It helps that the tool that I generate also integrate with a bunch of CRM tools, which kind of I'm using a lot of dog fooding to make my own things work. The second part that you can use a lot of this workflow automation into is deeply understanding the customer and the problems that they have. Uh, what I have also done when I say reach out on over cold email to somebody, I scrape their website and try to come up with tangible use cases where my product can actually benefit, or two, three use cases where it will really result in a increase in conversion if you were using A/B tests. And for me to manually do it for like hundreds of potential clients is very hard. But I have written scrapers where, look, this is the kind of primary business this customer is in. This is what their landing page says. This is where they have creatives. Could you just show a living version of what their landing page could look like with Wafrow? And have built those examples as a show don't tell kind of strategy, right? So in terms of storytelling, this, at least in journalism, this is very, very common that you don't tell people that this is what my tool can do. You literally give them an example of, look, this was the before, this is the after. And I use a lot of that content production in AI to, like you were mentioning earlier, make it sound less robotic. That somebody went through all the effort, understands my business, understands who I am as a person, is able to reach out to me over a one-to-one targeted channel like email, and also is able to post on something like LinkedIn, where I was publishing a lot of videos with me talking through a bunch of those features. And it helped in that kind of process. I wish I was much more camera friendly than I am, but that's a story for another day. But for me, AI is more like a content production engine, as relevant as it possibly can be, and as channel specific as it possibly can be. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, thank you so much, Ravdeep, for sharing this information and your unique experience with us. I hope our viewers out there can benefit from this and learn something. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
It
you
is
so much.
great.
Yeah, if somebody does want to reach out to me, you can possibly share my email as well, and be more than happy to help other founders in that same journey.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.